Houston Integrity, the D5 that's downlinking the 4K video is set up. I'm thinking I might power off the microphone, transmitter, and receiver. Leave the video running, and you call me when you're ready. We're going to move on and start getting ready for the OIG DFTO.
Victor, that's a good plan. Integrity Houston for PCD-3.
And Stan, we're with you. Go ahead for PCD-3.
Victor, we saw that PCD drop off the network. We think it might have been unplugged. Could you please run the wireless script on that PCD?
That is in work, Stan.
Thank you.
Houston, integrity for stowage.
Go ahead for stowage.
Yes, sir. A third Peltor SWAT TAC headset has been deployed to the cabin, and batteries have been swapped into Peltors for a total of 4 AAA batteries.
Copy. Thanks for that report. And Christina, while we've got you, for your upcoming exercise, if you want to record that, we think that the problem with the D5's recording stopping at 4 minutes might be because the camera is overheating. If you turn the live view off and it turns off the back screen, we think the camera will stay cool. And to clarify, leave the screen off between recording.
That's a great call. Some of us had suspected that. We will do that. Good news is this recording lasted the full time. We are also having overheating issues with the Nat Geo GoPro Max, and we've just been starting and stopping it and managing it as needed. But if you want to pass that on, no screens are on, so not sure there's a mitigation with that one. And for my exercise, I did have a successful recording yesterday, so I think I'll forego that.
And Christina, copy the Nat Geo overheating, and for recording, we are asking for recording of both resistive and aerobic exercise, so we would like you to record your session today.
Okay, and apologies, I hadn't seen it in my timeline, but I understand that that's because Reeves' timeline has us swapping. I'm happy to do that. Thank you.
Integrity Houston for optical comm.
Go ahead, Stan.
Okay, Reed, long story here. We are still not locked up on optical comm. We suspect solar array blockage. So between exercise sessions, between when you're done and Christina starts, we want to put a 25-degree roll on the vehicle, be about a 1-minute maneuver to an attitude where we think optical comm can see the ground terminal. Now, when we do that roll, we will have only one phased array antenna pointed at camera. So if that antenna fails, we'll lose comm, and a string swap will not recover it. So if we lose comm while we're in that attitude, you will have to maneuver the vehicle back to the bias tail to sun, where a second antenna will be available. And I have a procedure number and some check MCC numbers when you're ready to copy.
I am complete with exercise, so you can start that team working in that direction. Go ahead, Stan.
All right. We'll get started with that then. Thank you. If we lose comm in this temporary attitude, please go to procedure 25.1.100. That's SM attitude maneuver. In step 1, you'll answer yes. And I have, there's a check MCC step down there, a few lines down. Your point width will be the, point width secondary will be the minus X axis. That's number 6. Correction, minus Z axis, that's number 6, and Omicron is 315. How copy?
Okay, Stan, if we lose comm, and only if we lose comm, we will execute 25.1.100 SM attitude maneuver. Step 1, answer yes. Point with secondary negative Z, number 6, Omicron 315.
That's a great readback. So while we're in that attitude, you're looking for loss, caution warning, loss of ping. That's number 926. Or if you get antenna cautions or warnings, go work that GNC procedure we just gave you. Then, if we still don't get comm back, you would work the comm messages.
Okay. If we get a loss of ping, I might give it 2 or 3 minutes, or do you want us to execute immediately after loss of ping?
2 or 3 minutes, please. Good idea.
Integrity copies off. We're on it.
Integrity maneuver and damping complete. We are go for crew exercise.
All right, we copy. Thanks, Dan. Houston Integrity, Victor and I have completed the OIG activity.
Copy OIG. Thank you. Integrity Houston for OPCOM. We have a good optical communication link now. We're watching video from the SAW, but we don't see 4K video. We'd like you to please check the setup.
Okay, Stan, I checked everything going into the camera. It looks good. I stopped and restarted the stream.
Roger, Victor. We're talking about batteries here. Just a second. And integrity for Victor. All right, thank you for checking the setup for that. We are receiving 4K data at the ground site. We're still working on decoding it in the control center. Integrity Houston for 4K. Integrity for 4K, we're still having trouble getting 4K data on the ground. We'd like you to check in 26.4.2902 that the IP address is set correctly on the web page. And correction, that's step 3.
Okay, checking step 3.
And integrity correction in step 3, that's the destination address.
Okay, give me the procedure number again.
And Ike, that's 26.4.2902, Step 3, we're looking for a destination address of 10.110.1.98.
Okay, Houston, yeah, I apologize for taking so long to get in sync with you. I was actually just looking to see where this procedure would have come up, and so I'm not finding it referenced in either the 4K downlink setup procedure or the 4K downlink test. So that's some feedback for you, or direct me to where I missed it. But now give me the procedure again, and then I'll call you when I'm ready to copy the IP address.
All right, Victor, thanks for that feedback on the procedures. We are just getting in that the ground station is seeing good, clear video from Integrity. Now the problem is somewhere on the ground, and we'll sort it out from here. Thank you.
Okay, I'd still like to go check that setting and not do anything with it, but can I have that procedure?
Victor, it's 26.4.2902, 26.4.2902.
Okay, copy. Thank you for that. And I am going to look. I will not change anything, but I did not see a reference to this procedure in the previous 2 activities.
Roger. You should not have to get into this particular procedure for the setup. This is troubleshooting.
Okay, copy. That makes sense. Thank you for that. And just for your awareness, it is set up for the procedure.
Perfect. Thank you.
This is Artemis Mission Control at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. You heard the IVA, or Intravehicular Activity Officer, troubleshooting with the teams here on the ground why we might not be seeing the 4K video that is being routed. Got confirmation that one of the ground sites is able to receive that video, so teams here are troubleshooting why we might not be getting it in the room. Meanwhile, aboard the spacecraft, NASA astronaut Christina Koch is in her exercise period. Later today, Christina Koch and Reed Wiseman will get into their opportunity to test the orthostatic intolerance garment. And Jeremy Hansen and Victor Glover will each take turns exercising. With a mission elapsed time of 6 days, 21 hours, and 46 minutes, this is Artemis Mission Control in Houston, Texas. You're looking at a visualization known as ARROW, Artemis Real-Time Orbit website. You can access this on your own at any time by visiting nasa.gov/track-Artemis. The spacecraft is now 92,744 miles away from the moon. When the crew woke up this morning at 10:35 a.m. Central, we were 83,549 miles away from the moon, so almost 10,000 miles farther than we were just a few hours ago.
Terry Houston for the crew. We're going to private up OE2, and flight's going to give you a call here shortly.
Copy, we're switching.
This is Artemis Mission Control here in Houston, Texas. You did hear the team call up to the crew that they would have a privatized loop. This means they're allowed to have a private conversation with anyone here on the ground, specifically the flight director. It allows them to be transparent when asking or answering any questions, considering all of their other communications go out live.
Houston Integrity on 1 with the 4K downlink setup. We're curious if we can deconfigure so that we can take some photos with the 35mm lens.
Checking. And Victor, you can take charge of that camera.
This is Artemis Mission Control at a mission elapsed time of 6 days, 22 hours, and 1 minute into the flight of Artemis 2. As you can see, we've got some exercise happening on the spacecraft, judging by that movement. This is still slated to be Christina Cook's exercise portion of the day. And to avoid any damage to the solar arrays, because of this movement, they park them in a safe harbor or a safe configuration ahead of exercise. You heard some communications about the OpCom demo, those laser communications that we are testing out to use infrared light instead of traditional radio waves. We weren't able to access that 4K video streaming here in Mission Control Houston, but we did get confirmation it was received elsewhere. Coming up next, Mission Specialist 2, Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen will get into his exercise. In contrast to the exercise we've seen so far today for Reed Wiseman and Christina Cook, Jeremy Hansen and Victor Glover will be conducting resistive exercise. The flywheel system allows for both resistive and aerobic. Reed Wiseman and Christina Cook will also conduct their orthostatic intolerance garment measurements and testing. They'll put on those garments and see how they fit. Again, this is due to something that astronauts experience after an extended time in microgravity. It's orthostatic intolerance, and that can make it tough to stand up without experiencing dizziness. So this garment applies some compression on the lower body to help counteract this effect and support a safe return.
Integrity Houston, if you can confirm that Christina is complete with her exercise, we will maneuver Integrity back to a nominal tail to sun attitude.
She has just stopped right this second.
All right, we'll start our 2-minute array damping counter and then maneuver you. And of course, when we get into our nominal maneuver, you will not have to run the attitude maneuver procedure if there's a loss of comm.
Understood. Thanks, Dan.
Those communications coming to you from the Orion spacecraft. Also named Integrity. The Artemis II crew members named their Orion spacecraft Integrity and announced that last year. They say it embodies the foundation of trust, respect, candor, and humility across the crew and the many engineers, technicians, scientists, planners, and dreamers required for mission success. Integrity is rooted in a shared core value of NASA, the agency's astronaut office, and the Canadian Space Agency. That was Christina Cook calling down to let the ground team know she had completed exercise. They are going to maneuver the spacecraft and have to set a short timer to allow the motion to settle out before they do so. We are about 15 minutes away from today's mission status briefing here at Johnson Space Center. And if you are interested in watching that, you don't need to go anywhere. You can remain on this YouTube feed on NASA's channel. But we do have a second feed if you are looking for clean audio and not the briefing. So you can stick right here if you're interested in the briefing. You won't need to leave at all. But if you want to switch over, we'll be over there as well.
Integrity Houston for Victor and repress acoustics.
Go.
Victor, it's in the procedure, but we really need to make sure when you start the acoustic monitor, please give us a time hack for the repress acoustic.
That's right. I forgot to call you. I already restarted. I will do it again and give you a hack. I restarted it about a minute ago.
Copy. Let us know.
Houston Integrity restarting the acoustic monitor for the repress recording in 3, 2, 1, hack. Recording started.
Got it. Thank you, sir.
You are welcome.
And And Integrity, you're back in bias tail to sun.
Okay, copy that, Stan. Is the vehicle ready for me to start exercise?
We need a couple minutes, Jeremy.
Okay, just call when I can go.
We will do that.
Here in Artemis Mission Control, the team's changing the attitude of the spacecraft and configuring the solar arrays yet again for another exercise opportunity, this time for Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen. If you're enjoying hearing from the astronauts, we spoke with them recently and have an episode on Houston. We have a podcast with all 4 crew members. NASA has a suite of podcasts, and ours here at Johnson Space Center is Houston. We have a podcast with over 400 episodes with scientists, engineers, astronauts, and more, discussing everything from the International Space Station to Orion to the work that happens here on the ground. You can find those at nasa.gov/podcasts.
Integrity, Jeremy, you are go for exercise.
Okay, Stan, Jeremy is hopping on now, and I have placed a couple photos in a folder on PCD3 with the GMT date and window inspection for the team.
Copy, we will start getting those down ASAP.
This is Artemis Mission Control at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. A mission elapsed time of 6 days, 22 hours, and 16 minutes into the flight of humans aboard Orion. The first flight of humans aboard Orion, and the first time we've sent humans beyond the moon in over 50 years. Currently aboard the spacecraft, Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen getting into his exercise period, while Reed Wiseman and Christina Cook will be stepping into their orthostatic intolerance garment testing. Again, a lower body compression garment to help support a safe return. You can track where Orion's at
Integrity for exercise video.
Go ahead, Christina.
Hey, Stan, can you say again the instructions for making the LCD screen be off while you're recording video on the D5? We thought we heard you just press the live view button, but that seems to stop the recording as far as we could tell. My recording lasted for about 26 minutes, which was almost the entire duration, and then apparently stopped on its own. So we'd like to implement this for sure for Jeremy.
All right, Christina, that was Capcom's bad words there. Apologize. you will turn off the recording if you turn off live view while you're recording. The actual correct thing to do is to turn off live view in between recording sessions to give the camera a chance to cool down.
Understood. Thank you. We will do that. While I have you, I wanted to note that unfortunately I forgot to run the accelerometers during my exercise.
Copy. We appreciate the report.
Those communications from NASA astronaut Christina Cook down here to the ground. Now, we are just about 7 minutes away from our daily press conference here at NASA's Johnson Space Center. And if you're interested in watching, you don't have to go anywhere. This NASA YouTube stream will automatically switch over to the briefing at 4 p.m. Central. If you're interested in keeping up with astronaut communications, we do have a second stream on YouTube. You can check that out. Once the briefing is over, this will continue to be our primary stream for covering the mission.
Artemis 2 mission is a test mission of the Orion space capsule.
Artemis 2 will be the first time we put humans on this rocket.
We're going back to the moon because it's the next step in our journey to Mars.
We were always going to the moon.
Pushing ourselves to explore is just core to who we are. That's a part of being a human.
And liftoff. We shall return.
Continuing to test out every bit of Orion.
Coming back to Earth, 7 miles a second.
When humanity sets big goals, we can bring together genius from around the world.
You have the best people on planet Earth putting this vehicle together.
That's what's up. To innovate for the benefit of humanity and to inspire the world through discovery.
And here we go.
Good afternoon and welcome to NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston. Welcome to our Artemis 2 status update. I'm Rachel Kraft with NASA Communications, and I'm joined by several NASA leaders here this afternoon to talk about how the flight test has been going as the crew heads back toward Earth. They are Lakeisha Hawkins, Deputy for Artemis, Rick Henfling, Entry Flight Director for the mission, Debbie Korth, Orion Deputy Program Manager, and joining us by phone from the USS John P. Murtha, Lily Villarreal, the Artemis Landing and Recovery Director. We'll have some opening remarks as usual, and then we'll get into questions, and we'll start with Lakeisha.
Thank you. And thank you for your continued interest in our mission and in Artemis. So we're into flight day 8. And the mission continues to go well as the crew prepares to transition back to Earth and we get ready for entry day. After an exciting day of science on Monday and a day for the crew to recover and then achieve some other flight objectives yesterday, the team is turning our attention to the return and getting the crew safely home. Now, because this is a development flight, we are thinking about what we can still learn in the remaining days to better understand the systems and to inform future missions. And we're still getting a lot of imagery down from the spacecraft and from the crew. And I wanted to share a couple of the imagery highlights today. The crew was able to send down a group photo, and it's great to see them doing so well and in such great spirits. And I'm happy to see Rise there front and center with the team. We can't wait to welcome those smiling faces home. Now, the crew also took an image yesterday of the Milky Way, which is stunning. And free from atmospheric interference, the crew could see the glowing ribbon of stars and filaments, a clear view of our home galaxy. So I also wanted to highlight a few additional things that we're learning through this test that are directly feeding forward to our next missions, including Artemis 3. Now, in the area of science, in addition to the lunar science activities that we saw on Monday, our other science and payload activities continue to progress as planned. At the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama, our Payload and Mission Operations Division is operating our Avatar, or also the immune biomarkers experiment, as well as the standard measure activities. And these activities are going to really help us understand how the deep space environment impacts the astronauts during the Artemis missions. The experiments about human health are going to give us data that we need to be able to live on the moon longer as we develop the moon base and be able to prepare for farther trips like going on to Mars. During Apollo, they didn't gather this kind of human health data, and we can't get this information during low Earth orbit missions. So in terms of performance of the hardware, as we heard from the administrator yesterday, the mobile launcher is in good condition overall. And while we need to fix a few things, having the mobile launcher in good condition really ensures that we'll be ready to start stacking the Artemis 3 vehicle according to the timeline that supports launching that mission next year. You heard previously that the SLS performance was about as good and flawless as we could have expected. And the SLS team already has begun digging into all of that data for detailed post-flight analysis to see if any refinements need to be made going forward. And the data that we're getting from the Orion manual piloting demonstrations, including the proximity operations demonstration we had after launch, are critical to ensuring that we can dock with human landers during Artemis 3 and beyond. And we heard in real time from Victor during the ProxOps demonstration how precise the handling appeared to have been, and the other demonstrations are proving us with even more data. We have lessons we're going to address before Artemis 3, including some of our water valve operations, the wastewater venting that you've heard quite a bit about, as well as the service module pressure control assembly operations. And we're also learning about how long some of the activities inside the cabin should take. Our suit demonstration from several days ago provided helpful insights for future suit crew emergency operations if we should need them. We've also elected to skip the radiation shielding or parts of it, the demonstration, to allow more time for transition of the cabin to prepare for entry. And Rick will talk a little bit more about that. And these learnings are helping us get ready for our next mission. And when the mission goes well, it can look like flying to the moon is easy. It certainly is not. We can't forget that this is a test flight and are taking everything that we're learning forward to support the next mission. This has been a good mission so far, and we're nearing the end, having retired a significant number of risks over recent days. But the team remains focused, and we're making sure that we don't take our eye off the ball. Countless hours of people working together behind the scenes have been preparing for these moments, and people are still giving their all to ensure mission success. We continue to improve to make our ultimate goals of going to the lunar surface, building the moon base, and eventually sending the first humans to Mars a reality. So I appreciate your continued interest, and with that, I'll pass it to Rick to provide an update on operations as we get ready to bring the crew home.
Thanks, Lakeisha. So since we last got together, there's been a number of activities completed last night as well as today. Our primary activity yesterday evening was to perform our first return trajectory correction maneuver, RTC number 1. That was 1.6 feet per second. It lasted 15 seconds, and it was using the service module reaction control system thrusters. That burn was initiated at 8:03 p.m. Eastern Time last night. As far as today, we were able to get the crew in their orthostatic intolerance garments. These are special garments designed to help ensure the proper blood flow for the crew members when they return to the pull of Earth's gravity. It was important to get this and try this out today so that the crew has an understanding of what it's like to put this on entry day. We also were able to successfully stream a 4K video using the optical communication system, which continues to prove to be an extremely valuable tool in our beyond Earth orbit space flights. The crew also performed a couple of recordings for their National Geographic payload activity. They did a few PAO events. And later this evening, we're going to do a couple of manual piloting demonstrations. One will be to use the docking camera to point the spacecraft towards a celestial body. And the celestial body we're going to use for that activity is Arcturus. Once that activity is complete, we're going to do another manual piloting demonstration where the crew is going to center the Earth in the field of view of one of the windows, and then they're going to fly the spacecraft to an attitude where the tail points towards the sun. This is important in order to be able to show that the flight crew can maneuver their spacecraft to get power and generate power so they can continue to power the subsystems on board the spacecraft. Finally, we're going to finish with a portion of that radiation shelter demonstration that Lakeisha talked about. Ultimately, the radiation shelter demo was largely a stowage activity for us. We had to remove a bunch of stowage from a couple of lockers and show that we could get a crew member to shelter in that locker. While we don't need any more practice moving stowage around, we're going to get plenty of that on flight days 9 and 10. It was important to show that we could provide proper ventilation to the astronaut if they were to shelter in that stowage. And so the way we're going to provide good ventilation is through the suit umbilical. So when the crew members put their launch and entry suits on for entry, one of the umbilicals they made is for airflow, and we would repurpose that umbilical and show that we could provide proper airflow to the astronauts when they're in somewhat of a confined space of the stowage locker. Once we get through today's activities, then the focus really is going to shift to entry. And I think the first graphic is important to show up here for some of those critical events. You know, the first one that we're really going to have to keep our eye on is crew module and service module separation. That's going to happen about 20 minutes before entry interface. Once we get through the separation of the service module, we're going to do one final burn. It's called our crew module raise burn. This is typically not a burn that's going to be required, but it's our final opportunity to fine-tune our flight path angle before entry interface. So we'll perform that about 16.5 minutes before entry interface. Once that burn is complete, the spacecraft is going to make a couple of roll maneuvers. This will provide additional separation between the service module, which is headed for a destructive entry in the Earth's atmosphere, from the crew module, which obviously contains our 4 astronauts. Once those rolls are complete, the crew will go visors down, and then they will be in a isolated environment in their launch and entry suit until after splashdown. We'll hit entry interface at 400,000 feet, about 1,950 miles away from our landing site, and that's when the fun really begins. The 24 seconds after entry interface, we'll hit our blackout, which is the point at which the plasma has built up around the spacecraft such that it interferes with our ability for the transmitters on Orion to transmit telemetry. This is nominal. It'll last 6 minutes. Once that 6-minute blackout is done, Orion's going to be at about 150,000 feet. So still falling pretty quickly. We're going to be within a couple tens of miles of the landing site by that point. And then our focus is going to shift to deploying the parachutes. We've got 2 drogue parachutes that'll deploy. It'll be about 22,000 feet. That'll slow us down to about 200 miles an hour. And then we'll deploy the 3 main parachutes. Those are the orange parachutes you see in the image. That'll happen about 6,000 feet altitude, which will slow the spacecraft and her 4 inhabitants down to a gentle 20-mile-an-hour splashdown in the Pacific Ocean. We'll get the spacecraft power down about 15 minutes after splashdown, and then I'm going to hand over to Lily Villarreal, our recovery director, for mission authority. Let's go to the next graphic, which has a little bit more detail on some of those events. Here's a plot of what entry is going to look like. You can see it's only 13 minutes from entry interface until splashdown, so it's going to happen pretty quick. And the flight control team here in Houston, we're going to be without comms with the flight crew for 6 of those minutes. So it's going to start quickly, and it's going to be over even faster. Next page. And then for a graphic of all the parachutes that are going to deploy, the first thing before we deploy the drogue parachutes, we have to jettison something called the forward bay cover. It provides the protection for all the parachutes, and that's what's going to get jettisoned at about 35,000 feet. There's a window for the jettison of the forward bay cover, so if it doesn't happen at 35,000, it can happen lower, as low as 24. And nominally, we actually expect it to happen closer to 24,000 feet. Next page. And then if you're looking for a little bit of insight on our approach trajectory, we're going to have entry interface a little bit southeast of Hawaii. And after we fly 1,957 miles over the surface of the Pacific Ocean, we'll be landing in our targeted landing site off the coast of California. I think that's all I have for graphics, so I will turn over to Debbie.
All right. Thank you, Rick. So yeah, I'm happy to be back today, able to report that the Orion systems are all operating nominally, remain healthy, and we are just trekking our way home from the moon. So really excited to be just a few days away from that happening. Did want to talk a little bit about something you may not have seen yet. And if you pull up the full first graphic, it's a short video. Our engineering team supports the mission from a facility called the Mission Evaluation Room. It's the MIR. And so this is pictures of our team. There's 24 separate consoles, so this is different than the flight control room that you see a lot on NASA TV. These are our engineering expertise that supports Rick's flight control team. And so they've been on console since about 48 hours before launch, keeping close eye on all of the systems, looking at all the data, modifying procedures as needed, and then just watching how the systems are performing. So providing all really deep technical insight to that operating team. So that's also located here in Building 30 in the Mission Control Center. And so that's our MIR team working hard around the clock supporting the spacecraft. Second graphic I have is a few days ago I showed you some imagery of the crew module images we got down from our first external survey that was right after the TLI burn. So we actually do another external survey on the way home. This is our inbound external inspection. So I think go to the next slide. Yeah, so this is kind of two different views of the spacecraft. Again, did a comprehensive review of all the imagery that we were getting down off the surface of the crew module. No concerns, no issues seen that would make us have any pause for the reentry phase. Everything is in excellent condition for that entry. So that's our pretty crew module. I think we have a couple of pictures of the service module as well. Yeah, so we obviously don't bring the service module home. As we mentioned, that gets separated about 40 minutes before splashdown. But we did get some nice imagery. And the next one I thought was interesting. It's a picture of the solar arrays, but it's actually the backside of the solar array, which we don't normally see. So anyway, poured over all this imagery, and everything looks really good for the return. Operations-wise, there's a few other things going on in the cabin. One interesting test that we're doing today is when you pressurize the cabin, the panels and things that are connected there, kind of shift around a little bit. And so we're having a demonstration of can you actually remove some fasteners in those panels and put them back in? Do the structures still line up enough that you can do that? This is to help us prove out if we needed to do any kind of maintenance or contingency access to like our ECLS system. So we'll be looking at that today to see if that demonstration works out well. We're also doing some demonstration what's called 20 by 20 degree dead banding. This is pointing the spacecraft a little bit different throughout the day to test thermal responsiveness of the systems externally to see if we can expand our operating envelope for future missions. So I guess some other things, we've collected a lot of data on this mission. We'll be getting a lot of that data back when it comes back, but did want to mention a couple things. We've consumed 2,964 pounds of fuel in the service module. We have 4,285 to go. So clearly we had put a lot of margin into this mission to make sure we could fly it properly. 9,855 commands have been uplinked, so been busy for the flight control team and the MIR team doing all of that. And then we mentioned the optical comm and how effective that has been in getting data down. 122 gigabytes of data downloaded. That was a record. That was in a single day. That was today. And a total of over 312 gigabytes of data coming down on that optical comm system. So that's been really helpful for us getting down some of this beautiful imagery. Cabin is currently at a 76 Fahrenheit degree, so the crew's quite comfortable. Everything looks really well. And I think that's probably it from me. Spacecrafts continue to operate nominally, and we are hard at work monitoring it until it gets home. So with that, I will hand it over to Lily.
Hi, good afternoon. Just checking to make sure you guys can hear me first.
We hear you, Lily.
Okay, great. Thank you for joining us today. I'm currently at sea aboard the USS John P. Murtha with the joint NASA and military team who are ready to safely recover the crew once they splash down off the coast of California. The ship departed from Naval Base San Diego on time, and we are currently maneuvering the ship to the landing zone. Over the past couple of days, we have been completing final preparations on the ship, including training with the joint NASA and military team to refresh the skills and procedures that we've been practicing during underway recovery tests. I want to quickly walk you, however, through the process of how we will safely recover the Artemis II crew and the Orion spacecraft once they return from their trip around the moon. The ship and the small boats will be positioned at a safe distance at splashdown until the team has determined that their path of travel will be clear of any of the jettison hardware that Rick talked about. Splashdown, the crew in Houston will follow their post-landing procedures while our divers maintain a distance of about 120 yards to the capsule once we're cleared to go to the capsule. After handover from the flight director to the landing recovery director, the divers will approach Orion and they will conduct assessments of the air and water surrounding the capsule just to make sure that it's safe to approach and help the crew exit Orion. After ensuring the area is safe, they're going to go ahead and open the Orion hatch and help the astronauts from their seats to a large inflatable raft that we call the front porch. Once all 4 astronauts are on the front porch, we will tow the capsule away from the front porch, and the team will pick up from Navy helicopters which are deployed from the recovery vessel. 2 helicopters are going to rotate, picking up all 4 crew members before they return to the recovery ship within a few minutes of each other. Once the crew has exited the helicopters, they will proceed to the ship's medical bay to undergo routine post-flight medical checkups. We expect to recover the crew and deliver them to the medical bay within 2 hours of splashdown. With the crew safely out of the capsule and in tandem to the recovery, teams will work on towing Orion into the well deck of the ship using procedures that were very similar to those that we used on Artemis 1. Once we have Orion safely inside and all the small boats are back on the ship, we will start making our return to Naval Base San Diego. Depending on our distance, by then the Artemis 2 crew will fly off the ship back to shore, we anticipate within 12 to 24 hours post-splashdown. Before I wrap up my remarks, I do want to take a moment to thank our partners from the U.S. military who are supporting our Artemis recovery efforts. Without them, we couldn't do what we're doing. We had a very successful recovery of the uncrewed Orion spacecraft during the Artemis 1 mission, and we feel confident that through our testing and training alongside the Navy and other collaborators, we will make Artemis 2 just as successful. With that, thank you, and I'll pass it back to Rachel.
Okay, it's time now for questions. We'll take questions here in the room and on the phone bridge. A reminder to those of you joining by phone, you can press *1 to get into the question queue. Please limit your question to 1, and especially with Lily joining us remotely, please let us know who your question is for. Let's start here with Jackie.
Hi, Jackie Waddles, CNN. Quick question for Rick. Can you walk us through, I understand that loft trajectory was specifically planned out, but are there any contingency trajectories that you're also prepared to do in case anything is off nominal? And then I'd also love to clarify exactly what G-forces the astronauts are expecting to experience, whether in an off nominal or nominal situation. Thanks so much.
Yeah, good questions. I'll start with the more straightforward one with the G loads. For a nominal landing off the coast of San Diego, we're expecting 3.9 Gs. But we have a number of contingency trajectories which would land us further uprange or further away from our targeted landing site. We have, and when these contingencies are selected based on the severity of the problem. So we step deeper and deeper into the severity of the problem, which requires us to land shorter and shorter or further and further away from the landing sites. If we pursue one of those contingency trajectories, you could see G loads as high as 7 or 7.5 Gs.
Okay, we'll go with Josh here.
Hi, Josh, dinnerspace.com. What kind of data is lost by skipping the radiation sheltering test, and what's the impact of not being able to practice those procedures beyond low Earth orbit until the lunar landing mission on Artemis 4?
So I would, I see the radiation shelter as not really being a lost set of data. As we reassess the timeline for the remainder of the mission, we found that there was still an opportunity to test out that suit umbilical airflow, which is arguably, in my mind, is the most important part of that demo, because the radiation shelter was, it's an area in the spacecraft that is kind of deep down in one of the stowage lockers. And so the part of the demo that we're not going to practice is the removal of the stowage from the stowage locker, which is something that we don't necessarily need to demonstrate as part of that particular test. We know how to remove stowage. The really important thing is to make sure that we can provide a habitable environment when the crew member is down in that locker. And airflow is critical to that. If you're in zero gravity, you can develop pockets of carbon dioxide if you don't have sufficient airflow, because there's no convection to move the air around when you're breathing, and you end up having kind of a pocket of CO2 forming around your face. So the airflow is the most important part of that demo, and we did find a way to achieve that objective.
Yeah, and I should maybe add too, the stowage part of that is practiced quite a bit over in the mock up here in Building 9. So the part of that you can really do in 1G, they've practiced many times. So feel confident it'll work.
I'll just add that we will also still get data with respect to radiation, as well as the avatar data, where we are getting effects of radiation on tissue chips from the crews. So in terms of actual better understanding of the impact of radiation, we will still get data associated with that.
Okay, we'll go here to Eric Berger and then to Marcia.
Eric Berger, Ars Technica. Question for Debbie, I think. You mentioned the external survey. There were no concerns, no issues that would give us any pause. Let's say in the very unexpected event that there was some serious MMOD damage, on the edge of the heat shield that you could see, or with the spacecraft. I mean, I think I know the answer to this, but what is the contingency plan? That there isn't one, right?
Correct. I mean, we aren't looking at the heat shield. Obviously, that's still covered by the service module. So this is just your thermal protection system. My understanding is we would modify our flight profile to try and accommodate that, but I don't know. There's nothing we can do hardware-wise. There's no way to go repair, for example.
I would add that depending on the nature of the damage, if that were even something that we would have to consider, you can assess the various flight profiles, the ballistic landing profile, the loads managed, and you could try to pick one that was the least stressing if there were something of concern. But as Debbie said, we did the survey, and there's nothing to be concerned about for entry.
Marcia.
Marcia Dunn, Associated Press. For you, Rick, what's the maximum speed coming back? Is it going to set a record? I think you promised us that.
Yes, we did.
Yes, and when and how will the capsule be coming back to Florida?
So as far as the speed, our prediction for Artemis 2, we're going to reach a max velocity of 34,965 feet per second, and that is less than the Apollo 10 record of 36,397.
And the answer on how it comes back to Florida, we'll be trucking it back. So it'll get some conditioning done as soon as it gets back to San Diego, some quick inspections and other things we do there, but immediately, as quickly as we can, put it on a truck and it gets driven back to Florida, back to the facility where we'll start doing the deservicing there. It's closer to two weeks. Mm-hmm.
Mark.
Mark Carreau with Aviation Week. The external imagery that you showed, was that what was taken yesterday morning?
Yeah, that was our inbound inspection. So yes, that was the most recent pictures.
Okay, go ahead.
Mark Kirkman with NSF. Just want to drill down primarily with Rick, I guess, on the crew's experience for entry. Are they going to be heads down at entry interface? Is there any pre-bank? And also, if you can elaborate on the G spikes, the way I understand it is they do that first pull out, there should be a spike, and then there's another one as you come back down on the second side of that. And then just one other add-on to that is, are there any DTOs, any manual control inputs, any PTIs or anything like that that are going to be done in this time frame?
So you're correct that the crew members are going to be heads down. That provides them a view of the horizon as they enter. If we were in a different attitude, you wouldn't have that horizon as a reference. Yeah, there are two different spikes in the G loads, but again, the max is 3.9, so you get about two similar 3.9 Gs on entry as you do the various roll reversals. Pre-bank, we do have, we will roll in to capture the atmosphere right at entry interface, but we're predicting 5 of those roll reversals on the way down.
Jonathan.
Jonathan Seri with Fox News. Follow-up to that.
We're talking about the G's that the Artemis crew will experience. How does that compare to crews coming back from LEO, say in a Crew Dragon, in terms of G's and also duration of reentry?
It's a really good question. I would hate to speculate on the numbers, and so maybe we could follow up with you afterwards and give you accurate numbers as opposed to me speculating.
Okay, we'll take a couple questions from the phone. The first is from Lauren Grush with Bloomberg.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my question. I'm wondering if you can just walk us through the weather constraints for the landing location, if those do exist. And just to clarify, I guess I'm wondering what are the variables that you can change with this splashdown if there is some kind of technical issue discovered ahead of the reentry, and what can't you change? Thanks so much.
Sure. So for the weather constraints for splashdown, we're primarily looking at the wind conditions. We're looking at some of the wave conditions. We're looking at precipitation and thunderstorms. And as of now, our forecast for our landing site is winds out of the southwest, 10 knots, waves less than 4 feet with a wave period of 17 seconds. We're watching that cold front that I had mentioned over the past couple days. It's slowed down. It's also weakened in nature. And so the precipitation that we were watching is forecasted to be greater than 60 miles from the intended splashdown location. So we have some really favorable conditions. Should be later in the day in San Diego. That cold front will push through after splashdown, but it's looking like we'll have some favorable conditions for a nice landing on Friday. And there was another question, I think. Was there another? Maybe not. Okay.
I think so. About
okay.
What variables you can affect?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So as far as the variables that affect the landing down modes, we call them down modes. If you have a contingency, we're really looking at things that affect the guidance, navigation, and control, and the propulsion systems. So we want to ensure that the spacecraft can still fly safely home. So we have some ways to alter the landing, which shortens our entry profile. We land further uprange, but they are certified spacecraft guidance, navigation, and control modes that will ensure a safe landing in multiple failure condition contingencies.
Okay, next we'll stick with the phone. We have Ken Chang with the New York Times.
Hi, thank you. This is another question for Rick. What do you lose by not doing a skip reentry? Does that reduce the flexibility of where you can land?
From an operational perspective, it's that reduced range within which we can assess the weather conditions. But I don't know if Debbie has anything from a heat shield performance perspective to add.
Well, I think we did a lot of investigation after Artemis 1. We did do the full skip there, so we understand how the rest of the vehicle behaves, and done an extensive ground test program to understand how this heat shield behaves, and then so we can expand that to a larger skip, a real skip entry, starting with Artemis 3 again. So this is just one piece of our test flight program to get the full capability. I wouldn't say we're losing anything by going with the lofted entry on this flight. We knew that going into it, and we've built in the ground test program to get us the full skip entry for the future.
We'll do one more question on the phone, then come back to the room. The next question is from Nell Greenfield-Boyce with NPR.
Thank you. I'm asking a little bit more about the reentry inspection. So it seems like the heat shield's really kind of covered up. So I'm wondering, what you all are really looking for in the inspection. You said everything looked fine, but I'm wondering, what wouldn't be fine. And I'm also wondering, do we have any data on the heat shield that can't be seen? I don't know what it would be. I'm assuming not, but I'm just asking what, if anything's known about what's going on in the parts that are covered. Thanks.
Yeah, so the inspection we did was primarily for the back shells, and so that's I think it's about 1,300 different back shell tiles that are covered with that Ciox tape in most cases. So we're just looking to see if we see any notable damage that might give us a concern, that might want us to change how we do our reentry profile. The tiles themselves are very robust, and they have huge levels of margin, so we can accommodate some MMOD damage without compromising the vehicle. So we're just looking to evaluate, do we see anything that would be beyond what we think we can accommodate, and we really didn't see anything at all. So that's what we're looking at. In terms of the heat shield, no, we're not getting data off of that at this time. That's been covered with the service module. And so we will not be getting any data off of that until we hit that separation phase.
Bill Harwood with CBS. A question for Lily. Is Lily still on the line?
Yes.
Can you go over the crew extraction sequence? In other words, which astronaut comes off first? Do you alternate one on one chopper, one on the other, and then rotate back through? Can you like tell us who's first off, who's last off, and how they sequence the choppers? Thanks.
Yes, I can definitely answer that. The nominal plan is to open the hatch, and the first medic will go in and assess the crew right away, and then he will be helping the first crew member in seat 3, which is actually Jeremy. And then the second medic will enter, and he will go to Reed, and then we'll have the 2 follow-on medics along with the medical officer. The Navy medical officer will go in and take care of Victor and Christina. Once they assess that everything's well, the plan is to egress Christina first, then Victor, then Jeremy, and then Reed. Of course, if there are any situations medically where there's some concern, the medical officer has the right to egress the person who is impaired first if needed. And that's pretty much the sequence that we will also pick up via helicopter.
We'll go with Will.
Thank you. Will Robinson-Smith with Spaceflight Now. Thank you all for taking the time. Question to Rick. You mentioned the remaining manual piloting events that are still left. Can you talk about which crew members are going to be doing what? And then just a quick one to Lakeisha. We've heard the crew during each of the crew planning briefings talk about the lights on the Avatar experiments. Some are on, some are off. Can you explain what a light being off actually means? Thanks.
Sure. As far as the manual piloting demonstration this afternoon, all 4 crew members are scheduled for that event. And from what I recall pre-flight, Reed really wanted to ensure that this spacecraft could be flown by pilots and non-pilots. And so I would expect everyone to have an opportunity to have a chance to fly the spacecraft so that we can understand the handling capabilities of Orion, both from a pilot's perspective as well as from a non-pilot. Because by demonstrating that Orion is capable of being flown by pilots and non-pilots, you open the door for a wider range of future astronaut selections and flight crew assignments, because you no longer have to be beholden to there being a test pilot in the commander and pilot seats. You can really allow anyone in the astronaut corps to help fly that spacecraft.
Yeah, to your question about Avatar, we will get you someone to get you a specific answer about the lights on, lights off. But that's an autonomously run system. It's still got good power to it, and it is still functioning. It reported back that it's still functioning as it should. Right, so we'll be looking forward to getting that off of the ship to get the data from it at the end of the mission. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Ed Lavendera with CNN. Thank you for taking the time today. Can you talk about, and this might be a question for Lily and Reed, how many aircraft, drones, kind of getting eyes on the capsule as it's coming back in for re-entry? And is that number kind of standard, or is it more because this is such the first time there's been a crew on this particular capsule re-entering?
Lily, do you want to take that one? I think you would probably be better suited to answer it.
I think it's good. Thank you. And Debbie can confirm that there's going to be at least 7 different aircraft, sci-fi aircraft at different altitudes imaging the vehicle. And Debbie, correct me if I got that wrong.
No, that's correct, and it's a lot more than we had on Artemis 1. We've added quite a few more air assets to capture more imagery as the vehicle is coming down.
Correct. So besides those sci-fi planes. We will be using 2 of the Navy military helicopters, MH-60s, with our own gimbals. They're going to be at different altitudes who will be much closer to the splashdown, taking imaging of the splashdown all the way until splashdown. If for some reason we have clouds, we also have additional gimbals on the bow of the ship to be able to capture that landing right when it happens right in front of the ship for us.
Go ahead.
Hi, Andrea Leinfelder of the Houston Chronicle. I was hoping to talk a little more about this being a test flight. We've talked a lot about the toilet, but can you give us a little more information on the water valve and the service module issues that you hope to learn from?
Sure. I think early in the mission we talked about a water valve in the water on-off valve in the potable water system that had we saw had inadvertently closed. And so because that's in the service module, we will not be getting the service module back. And so we have designed a bit of a test to do. I think it's happening later today. The timeline's moving around a bit, but to kind of do some additional opening and closing of different valves in that system to learn more about those behaviors. Always taking into account we never will put us at risk of not having water available. So we're actually doing this, now that I think about it, it's later in the mission to make sure that we have all the water we need and we're done with any access to that system that's required. So that's one of the things we're doing just to learn about the valves in that system since we won't be getting the service module back.
Irene Klotz with Aviation Week for Debbie. Can you discuss a little bit the applicability of the data that's going to be collected about the heat shield wear on Artemis 2 for the heat shields that are being changed for Artemis, actually 4 in particular, and also for 3 since it's not going to be coming back from a lunar orbit? Just what value is that information now? Thanks.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm prepared to talk to you about Artemis 3 today, but the value of the data off Artemis 2, we are flying a different profile, but we have what we expect to see on that heat shield based on that profile and based on our ground testing. So a lot of this data we get is to validate the models and the testing we saw on the ground to make sure we're able to recreate behavior in testing on the ground, and then we can use the recreations on the ground to actually test what we want to do in the future. So we are building what we call the permeable heat shield for Artemis 3 that is designed for lunar returns. We've been talking about Artemis 3 now being maybe a LEO or a HEO mission. Again, we get data back regardless, and so we can look at the heating on that heat shield from return, correlate it to our models, correlate it to our ground testing, and so it's not you have to have those lunar returns. We can use that data to help prove out that design as we move forward.
Okay, we'll go there and then to the gentleman in front of you.
Hi, Dr. Allison McGraw from Mysterious Meteorites. This is perhaps a question for Debbie. How is the risk assessment for micrometeoroids or orbital debris completed?
There's a very defined tool we use called PRA, probabilistic risk assessment, where we actually look at all of the things that create risk for the mission, and MMOD is one of those items. And so we have, MMOD predictions for the environments that we're flying in, the orbits we're flying in, and those feed into that tool, and that's how we determine where that risk falls in that regime. We designed the spacecraft to try and be tolerant to MMOD strikes by putting a lot of margin into our TPS materials and flying in certain ways to keep the MMOD away from where we don't want it to be. So not a lot we can do with what's out there, but we try and characterize it and analyze to it so we understand what we're accepting.
Okay, we can go to you, and then we'll take another question from the phone.
Hi, Michael Adkisson, Houston Public Media. I have a question for Rick. I want to ask how reentry for this mission looks different than it did for Artemis 1 and also recent missions over the last, couple of decades, how this is specifically different. And then if I could also get a quick confirmation to tonight's press conference. I tried to figure out if this is the first press conference from deep space before, or at least, out of Earth orbit, and couldn't figure that out at 100%. So if anyone has that confirmation.
Well, on that one, we'll have to go back and look what they did during Apollo. So we'll get back to you.
As far as the changes on entry between Artemis 1 and Artemis 2, the most significant difference is the range from entry interface to splashdown. We've talked a number of times about how we've shortened the entry range We're down around 2,000 miles for this mission, and that's a function of the certification of the heat shield.
And we did just actually get a quick follow-up that there were in-flight opportunities with the crew during Apollo. Okay, we'll go to the phone. We'll get a question from Micah Maidenberg with the Wall Street Journal.
Hi, thanks, Rachel. Just a couple of things for Rick. Rick, how long does the period of max velocity that you mentioned last? And can you talk about sort of the expectations for crew during reentry? Are they expected to be silent, make verbal observations about what's going on? Thanks.
Yeah, the period of max velocity shouldn't last long. We're continuing to speed up as we speak. We're getting closer and closer to Earth, and our velocity is increasing, and it'll peak out right around entry interface. As for what's going on in the cockpit, it'll be very similar to when you're on board a aircraft flying commercial. The pilots are nothing but professional because they're focused on the task at hand. And so I expect the cockpit to be silent as Reed and Victor monitor the spacecraft performance. If all goes nominal, they will not need to take any actions, but they have been trained working with my team of flight controllers to respond in the event that we are faced with an off-nominal scenario.
Our next question is from Joseph Howlett with Scientific American.
Hi. From the mission thus far, I'm curious if there's any lessons you've learned that have informed the plan for reentry. Are there any new risks or contingencies that you're thinking about based on what you've learned so far aboard?
As far as what we've learned throughout the mission that has changed how we've done entry, we really have had a really well-functioning spacecraft. My team is going to take the console tomorrow, and we're going to have a briefing with the flight crew in preparation for entry. And really, we don't have any major things. Debbie's got the water valve testing that they talked about, but again, we're going to jettison the service module. The crew module propulsion system is nominal. We're going to activate that tomorrow and see how it's functioning. And so we're planning a nominal entry with procedures just as we had developed them pre-flight.
Joey.
Hey, thanks, Joey Roulette with Reuters. What's the temperature going to be inside the cabin at peak heating or peak velocity? And for any of the little tiny problems that have popped up during this mission, like the toilet and that weird smell that the crew was experiencing, is there anything you have to do with those before re-entry, or is there any problems they might pose during re-entry? Thanks.
I would say from a hardware standpoint, nothing we're doing on those relative to re-entry. We have not had any reports of that smell again, and so we'll look more into that in the crew module when it gets back. Things like the wastewater venting, we have some new work planned on the dock at the Naval Base San Diego to try and get some early data off of that system. So we're modifying some things on the ground as soon as it gets here to get some data back very quickly, but nothing that we're changing in the mission profile relative to those items.
And recall on entry, the crew will be suited with their visors down in a pressurized suit so that they're going to get cool air, and so regardless of the cabin temperature, they'll remain cool and comfortable in their suits.
Jackie Goddard for the Times of London. I wondered if Lily could just tell us, are there any other recovery or rescue assets in the area? The expectation that the capsule is just going to plop right in front of the vessel. I was just wondering if there's other stuff in the area in case it doesn't. And also, could anybody just talk us through how you, what's going to happen with the astronauts after they come back here? Has there been conversation about what their wishes are in terms of public appearance and so on? Thank you.
Okay, this is Lily. I'll answer the first one. Yes, we still are working with the military to ensure that if there is an off-nominal event, that we have rescue forces ready to go to the site of the off-nominal landing. And so we have C-17s with PJs that are stationed at Joint Base Charleston, ready to deploy if needed. And then we have a C-17 with PJs, and also all of the hardware that's needed to rescue the crew at Joint Base Pearl Harbor, ready to go at entry. So we're pretty much covered if there is an off-nominal event and they do not land where the ship is. Now, if they land, a short distance from the ship, obviously we will start heading towards the splashdown site. And I'll let somebody else take the second question.
Yes, we do hope to have an opportunity to hear directly from the crew once they return to Earth several days after their return. Okay, let's come down to the front row here.
Zachary Albert with the Launchpad. Can you take us through the timeline of getting the experiments and science out of Orion? I know coming home from the ISS, there's some that we rapidly get back off the vessel. Is there any plans with that with Orion, or is it going to more just ship back with it when it comes back to Florida?
It's a combination. There's early desto bags that come out right away. They get shipped back on aircraft. Some of the data storage that's got some of the imagery and other technical data will actually be downloading those cards onto computers, making copies there in San Diego. So it's a combination depending on the criticality, and then the vehicle itself comes back, with the rest of the equipment. TJ
Muscura with the Epoch Times. Thanks so much. For Lakeisha, sorry if I missed it earlier. I know we were talking about radiation data. Have you all been able to gather or have any of that radiation data downlinked yet? And have you guys been able to take a look at it? Or is that all going to be after?
So I think I was referring to the Avatar data, and that data will obviously be brought off of the ship once it's returned. Yeah.
Okay, we'll take one from the phone. This from Manuel Mazzanetti with Exploración Espacial.
Thank you so much. Manuel Mazzanetti with Exploración Espacial. A question maybe for Rick. This is not regarding entry, but the simulation that the crew performed with the oxus. I would like to know if they provided some feedback after this exercise. I understand that they were doing in different speeds, how they felt about it, and if you received some feedback from this test. Thank you.
Manuel, we're not hearing you quite clearly. Can you try again, please?
Yes, I apologize. Manuel Mazzanetti with Exploración Espacial. I was asking Rick if he can provide if the astronauts gave some feedback regarding the test with the oxysuits on board the capsule a few days ago. They were doing at different speeds, and I wonder if the crew provided some feedback of improving the process or if they felt okay with it.
So I'm not particularly aware of any specific feedback that we've gotten yet from the oxysuits from putting them on before, from putting them on earlier in the mission, but the experience gained from having a chance to put them on during the mission and not just before entry is invaluable to the crew. They will have, no one's put an oxysuit on in zero gravity before, and so the lessons that they learned from doing it in a arguably less stressful time in the middle of the mission, it's going to pay dividends for when they have to put it on entry day, when there is a little bit of a time constraint, because we need to ensure that they're suited and seated before entry.
Miles.
Hi, Miles Doran, CBS News. One question for Rick and one for Debbie. Rick, how long before entry interface and roughly at what altitude, if you know it, are you switching back over to TDRS and getting GPS back? How quickly is that sequence of events happening? And Debbie, after Artemis 1, the main parachutes and the forward bay cover weren't able to be recovered for inspection. Is there anything you wish you knew about how they performed that you don't know based on other data that you were able to get? Thanks.
So as far as the handover from the Deep Space Network to TDRS, that's going to occur approximately 38 minutes prior to entry interface. Once the handover is complete, you'll hear a comm check from Capcom to confirm we have a good link. And I just think this is a good time to acknowledge that the Deep Space Network has been performing exceptionally through the mission. It was a watch item as we were preparing for the mission over the past couple of months. But the team that has been managing those systems and ensuring good communications has really performed tremendously, and their efforts pre-flight have paid dividends.
Yeah, I'd say on the parachute question, the Artemis 1 was one data point, and so we really don't, it's a demonstration of how the parachutes perform, but our certification is really based on extensive ground tests where we are, chunking parachute assets out the back of a plane in Yuma and looking at all different kind of corners of the box when you have one chute out or two chutes out or one drogue and you miss a main. And so you're doing these tests on the ground to really prove out that system. So I'd say, not getting the asset back, that, you can always learn by visually inspecting it when it comes back, but that's not what we base our certification on. We are putting the parachutes for Artemis 2 on the, we would like to recover them and see if we get those back. But part of the reason of adding all the additional air assets that we spoke of earlier was to get some really good imagery of those chutes if we don't get them back.
Okay, we'll take one or two more, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up. Go ahead.
Hi, Nick Notario with ABC 13. Question, Rick, for you. Give us the difficulty about what you're going to do relative to the launch, the lunar flyby. For people at home, how hard is this splashdown that you all are trying to accomplish? And what are the nerves like here at JSC to make sure that those astronauts return safely to Earth?
I don't know if it's necessarily harder. I think it's just a different environment. It's very dynamic, so similarly to the launch environment, there's not a lot of time to react. When we're performing the launch of any rocket, no matter who's in charge of the launch, there's not a lot of time to respond. And we've talked a little bit, and we showed the video of the engineering team and how the operations teams and engineering teams have been working well together. Unfortunately, when we're in a really time-critical, dynamic environment, we don't have as much of an opportunity to exchange information and talk through nuances of failures. And so what's different for entry is more that there's more of a reliance on the operations teams as the experts to provide a recommendation and safely ensure that the astronauts return home.
I'll just mention that Debbie mentioned a little earlier about the probabilistic risk assessment. We don't talk a lot comparatively about the risk of one part of the mission relative to another, but obviously, launching the rocket in Ascent is a significant part of the risk that we've retired and is behind us. But obviously, we're down to the wire now. We're down to the end of the mission. And obviously getting the crew back home and getting them landed safely is a significant part of the risk that's still in front of us. So.
Okay, we'll take one final question here, and then we'll go ahead and conclude. You just wait for the mic.
Thanks for taking my question. I'm very sorry, it brings up the dreaded toilet again. But there was some conversation between the crew and control, I think it was yesterday, about the volume in the tank needing to keep on top of that ahead of re-entry. I was just wondering if you could give me some more information about what that concern might have been, or whether it even is a real concern. I take it from your previous answers, you're happy about the conditions for re-entry, but why could that be an issue? And if it is an issue, has it been resolved?
Yeah, I think the issue that, if it's specific to reentry, is with that tank, it's not, we've been talking for the last few days, it's not venting as effectively as we had hoped or had planned. And so that tank may have more volume in it on reentry day than our initial models had analyzed. And so we're just looking at, with a tank of that volume, are we okay? And we're perfectly fine. So just double checking loads and things like that. And CG of the spacecraft, things are moved around and packed differently, so all that's part of that assessment we do right before reentry.
Okay, we'll go ahead and wrap up. I want to thank our participants for joining us today. We do have one time change coming up with the crew news conference scheduled for later this evening. That will occur approximately an hour later. Plan to start at 9:45 Central Time, 10:45 p.m. Eastern Time. You can stay tuned for all the latest updates, including imagery, at nasa.gov, and thank you for joining us.